I've come to understand that for you to be really successful in the world, you have to be good when it comes to ideas. You have to be good in doing two things. You have to be good in managing ideas, and you have to be good in planting ideas. Interesting. Hi, thanks again for joining me in this edition of Clear Thinking Digest. Today, I'd like to discuss and share with you, I'd like to rub minds with you about an interesting idea, an interesting thing that has been nagging my mind for some time now. And it's about ideas, the role of ideas in our lives, how we manage ideas, how ideas come to be, how ideas are created in our minds, and how we create it in other people's minds. You see, in my study of the most successful people in the world and what has actually characterized their habits and the way they do their things, what has characterized their success, I've come to understand that a huge part of what actually makes someone successful to a large extent is the way and manner they manage ideas, how they take ideas, how they manage ideas. I've come to understand that for you to be really successful in the world, you have to be good when it comes to ideas. You have to be good in doing two things. You have to be good in managing ideas, and you have to be good in planting ideas. Interesting. You have to be good in managing ideas. When you conceive an idea, you take that idea, rub minds with it, grow it, nurture it, and then take it to maturation and fruition. And then you equally have to have the ability to incept ideas in people's minds, to plant my ideas in people's minds. Check out the most successful people in the world. Check out leaders of great companies. Check out leaders of countries. What they are good at doing is that once they download the inspiration or the vision that comes to them in form of an idea, it doesn't stop there. They take on that idea, they're able to manage it. They're able to take on that idea from its moments of conception to its moments of maturation. But they cannot successfully take that idea to its moments of maturation if they don't understand how to incept that idea, how to plant that idea in other people's minds successfully, and then get others to use that idea and also grow it in the same way they are growing it in their own mind. In the past, I've done videos about idea management, but I'm going to buttress a little bit more on that. So today I'm going to talk about idea inception and idea management. So what is idea inception? I watched this interesting movie and I think you should check it out. Inception. It's about a movie that explores the concept of planting ideas in people's minds during their dreams, in the subconscious mind. So the interesting thing about that is when we talk about inception, it's about planting ideas into people's minds. So how do you actually do that? But before we talk about that, I want to talk about in brief detail about idea management. I've touched upon this in my previous video. Idea management is the ability to take an idea from its moments of conception to its moments of maturation, to nurture it, to grow it, to take care of it, and to be able to pass it on to others. Now, the point of passing it on to others is the point of idea inception, when you develop the ability to plant ideas in other people's minds. So, if you're going to be successful in your work, you have to first of all develop the ability to manage your ideas. When you download an idea, when you get a download of inspiration or vision, how do you take care of it? So in order to take care of that, you have to have enough cognitive space for that idea to thrive in your mind, because an idea is a form of energy. It's an organized energy that inhabits your mind. So when you get that download It comes in the form of thoughts, and then it actually grows to become a full-blown intelligent organism in your mind. So when you take it on and then you start tinkering on its applications, tinkering on the possibilities of how to apply it, when you take it on and you start tinkering on it, the study you do, the cognitive space, the amount of cognitive space you have in your mind for that idea will determine to a large extent how successful you're going to carry that idea and the lifespan of that idea. Now, that's the first stage. And every leader, every organizational leader, every leader of a company, every great person that you know understands how to do this. Now, the second is your ability to communicate that ideas to others. And that is your ability to plant that ideas in people's minds. So how do you do that? I'm going to do a couple of videos more exploring on this idea of inception, idea inception and idea management. But in the first instance, I want to talk about how I believe, the two most important things that I believe that when it comes to incepting ideas or planting ideas into other people's minds, how you can successfully do this. And by the way, this can be used by any person, both marketers, by leaders, by practically anybody that's seeking influence. And you and I know that each of us in our work, what we are doing is we seek influence. We want influence. We want to influence others to do our wishes, to help us to carry out our goals, to help us to carry out our own research, to help us to carry out our own cause. All of these things, we are always seeking other people's attention. We are always looking out for other people's attention. And we want to employ others to come into our camp and work for us or work with us. So for you to be successful to do that, you have to understand how to plant the desirable idea into other people's minds. So I think your ability to do that comes in two folds. It comes with an understanding, with your understanding of the two languages that humans use. We humans, we evolved over the years, just like every other animal. And then we evolved from a ordinary species that is emotional, that is very much like every other animal that you see out there. We evolved gradually to a rational thinking human being that we call homo sapiens. And the capacity that allows us to think, it's our cognitive mind. It's the prefrontal cortex that allows us to make rational decisions. That's the executive functions. It takes care of the executive functions of our mind. And so when we evolved with that capability, we developed two abilities. And these abilities are found in the area of the language, the way we use language. So we developed two forms of language. That's the rational language and the emotional language. Now, the emotional language is the kind of language that we share in common with majority of other animals. And so the other parts of our brain, apart from the prefrontal cortex, deal with emotional response system within us. And so when we evolved the prefrontal cortex, that is when we started thinking rationally. And that deals with rational language. So if you're going to communicate to people, if you're going to plant ideas into people's minds, you have to learn how to manage the rational language and the emotional language. If you're communicating an idea to someone, you have to understand what's my intention of communicating this idea to this person? What do I want this idea to achieve in this person's life? To successfully plant an idea into someone's mind, you have to understand the language in which that idea has to be encoded for it to successfully do the work you want in that person's life. So how do you do this? Majority of the time, the most effective way to plant an idea into someone's mind is through emotional language. Rational language helps us to understand the science behind things, mathematics, physics, and all of that. Rational language allows us to do that. So when you want to communicate a rational idea, when you want to communicate things that has to do with science, the logic of the universe, the logic of how things work, You want to use rational language in communicating that. Like when a student is in class and is being taught the principles of physics, maths, chemistry, you want to communicate that, no, with rational language. What teachers use to communicate that is rational language. But when you want to communicate something more powerful, let's say a vision, let's say a guy that is proposing to a lady to marry him, you don't want to communicate in a rational language in that instance, because everything about language and life partnership is something that boils down to the subconscious level and the inner recesses of human mind. So you want to communicate that. It's emotional language. Now, this happens across board. It happens in marketing. It happens in leadership, in politics. It happens in religion. Religions use emotional language. Politics use emotional language. Marketing use emotional language. A lot of the things that we interact with, a lot of the ways that we interact with in our lives utilize emotional language. They involve emotional language. And why is that? The reason for that is simple. We were first emotional beings before we became rational beings. We evolved the emotional parts of our brain before we evolved the rational parts of our brain. The rational path is just a later stage of our cognitive development. So that explains the reason emotional messages have huge impact on us and can be stored much longer than rational language. And also the reason for that is that the subconscious mind, our subconscious mind, that has a vast storage capacity for messages, for ideas, understands only one kind of language. It understands emotional language. So when you want to communicate to the subconscious mind so that it can drive a person's behavior, then you want to communicate that idea in an emotional language. You don't want to communicate it with rational language, because when you communicate it with rational language, it gets filtered out in the conscious mind. So the subconscious mind only recognizes emotional language. Now, the reason why you want to communicate that with emotional language is that messages that are communicated with emotional language tend to take over the person that harbors that message. When it comes to rational language, you can think over it, and then you can decide, you can do logic over it. But when it comes to emotional messages, emotional ideas, they hijack the person's immune system, they hijack the person's personality, and they take absolute control of that person. So, in a nutshell, this is what I want to explore on the idea of, on the concept of idea inception and idea management. I'm going to explore more ideas on this topic because I'm really fascinated and amazed at the depth and the usage and the power of these concepts in helping us interact with others and achieve what we want to achieve in other people's lives, in our own lives and other people's lives. So I'm going to explore deeper on these concepts, especially when it comes to idea inception and how we can use emotional language to communicate our ideas. But more importantly, we'll find out that majority of the messages that we pass it across in rational language. But if you want to have better effects, if you want it to have a deeper effect on people, you want to learn how to convert your ideas. You want to learn how to convert your message from a rational concept to an emotional concept. And that is what I'm going to explore in the next video. So please join me next week. You're going to learn a lot.